The marble floor was so cold beneath Nia's bare feet that she could feel it in her bones. Or maybe that was just fear. 2 a.m, Kim Jae-sun's private study. And her, summoned like prey into a predator's den. He circled her slowly, his footsteps deliberately silent despite his size. The smell of expensive whiskey hung in the air, sharp, intoxicating, dangerous. Just like him. She kept her eyes down, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles ached. She'd heard the whispers in the kitchen earlier tonight. Another attempt, another plan, another body that would disappear by sunrise. Maybe hers. You saved me once. His voice cut through the silence like a blade wrapped in silk, ice cold, controlled. But when she dared glance up, his eyes burned with something she couldn't name. Why? The memory flashed unbidden. The formal dinner 3 weeks ago, her trembling fingers sliding that folded paper beneath his hand. Don't eat that. Leave now. His shocked expression when he looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since she started working in this nightmare of a mansion. Her voice cracked. She swallowed hard. I didn't think... That's your problem, Nia Adesina. He moved closer, invading the small space she'd tried to preserve between them. She could feel the heat radiating from his body, see the dangerous angle of his jaw. You think too much. You see too much. You know too much to be just a maid. Her brother's face flashed in her mind. Chidi. 14 years old and fighting leukemia in a Lagos hospital that smelled like bleach and broken dreams. His medical bills were 3 weeks overdue. She couldn't lose this job. She couldn't lose her life either. Jae-sun leaned down, his breath warm against her ear. So, tell me, who sent you? Before she could answer, he pressed a button on his desk. A screen flickered to life behind him. Security footage. Grainy, time-stamped the night of the poisoning. And there she was, entering the basement where she had no business being, where she'd overheard everything. Her heart stopped. Now, Jae-sun whispered, his voice deadly calm. Tell me the truth, before I decide you're the enemy. Hey, before we continue, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And trust me, you'll want to hit that subscribe button right now, because what Nia discovers in the next 5 minutes will change everything. I'm talking about a betrayal so deep, even Jae-sun won't see it coming. You won't believe who's behind this. Nia's legs nearly gave out. She gripped the edge of his desk to steady herself, her mind racing faster than her panicked heartbeat. The footage looped on the screen, her slipping through the basement door, disappearing into shadows, emerging 10 minutes later with terror written across her face. I wasn't sent by anyone, she said, forcing strength into her voice she didn't feel. I was looking for extra cleaning supplies. The upstairs storage was locked. Lie. He didn't even blink. Try again. She lifted her chin, meeting those cold, calculating eyes. I'm not lying. I went down there. I heard something I shouldn't have, and I made a choice. What choice? To save your life instead of saving my own skin. Silence stretched between them like a tightrope. Jae-sun studied her face with the intensity of a man who'd built his survival on reading lies. Finally, he gestured to the leather chair across from his desk. Sit. Talk. And if I catch you in one lie, you'll wish you'd let me eat that poison. Nia sat. Her hands trembled in her lap, but she forced herself to speak. My name is Nia Adesina. I'm 24. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria. The words came faster now, propelled by desperation. I came to Korea a year ago, with nothing but a work visa and a prayer. My brother, Chidi, he's 14. He has leukemia, acute lymphoblastic, stage 3. She watched Jae-sun's face for any flicker of emotion. Nothing. The Ice Prince lived up to his reputation. My mother died when I was 19, cervical cancer, no money for treatment. My father left when I was 12. I've been raising Chidi alone since Mama passed. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. The treatments cost more than I could ever make in Nigeria, so I came here. I cleaned restaurants, slept on floors, sent everyone back home. And then you came to work for me, Jae-sun said quietly. I didn't know who you were, not really. Nia's laugh was bitter. The job posting said, private household, good pay, room and board. I thought I'd be cleaning for some rich tech executive. I didn't know I was walking into a mafia empire until my first day, when I saw men with guns at every door. But you stayed. Chidi's hospital called that same week. He needed an emergency transfusion. The bills were overdue. She met his gaze directly. I didn't come to Korea to die in a mansion, Mr. Kim. I came to save my brother. So yes, I stayed. I kept my head down. I followed every rule. I made myself invisible. Until you weren't. Jae-sun leaned back, his expression unreadable. Until you heard something in that basement and decided to play hero. I heard 2 of your senior men talking about poison, about killing you that night. The memory made her throat tight. I knew what happens to witnesses in your world. I knew speaking up meant I'd probably die. But I also knew... She paused. I couldn't just watch. I couldn't serve you dinner and watch you die and pretend I didn't know. Why not? His question was sharp, probing. You barely knew me. I've never been kind to you. I gave you orders and expected silence. So why risk everything for a man like me? Nia's response came from somewhere deep and honest. Because my mother taught me that we don't save people because they deserve it. We save them because we are better than the evil around us. Because someone has to choose differently. She met his eyes. Even when it costs us everything. For the first time since she'd met Kim Jae-sun, something shifted in his face. A crack in the ice, a flicker of something human beneath the killer's mask. He stood abruptly, walked to the window overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. My parents were murdered when I was 4 years old, he said, his back to her. Rivals sent men into our home, shot them in front of me. My uncle, Kim Dae-jung, he took me in, raised me, trained me. His hands clenched behind his back. He taught me that trust kills, that love is weakness, that the only way to survive in this world is to become colder than your enemies. He turned, and Nia saw something she never expected in those dark eyes. Pain. Old. Deep. Buried under years of violence. They call me the Ice Prince. 23 confirmed kills before I turned 24. I've tortured men for information. Executed traitors without hesitation. I don't feel remorse. He moved toward her slowly. I loved once. A woman named Min Seo. Beautiful. Intelligent. I trusted her with everything. What happened? Nia whispered. She sold me to the Park family. Set me up for assassination. I survived, but barely. His jaw tightened. I killed her myself, and I swore I'd never trust anyone again. The room felt suffocating. Nia understood now. The walls around this man weren't just thick. They were fortified with trauma and blood. So you see my problem, Jae-sun continued. You saved my life, but I don't know if you're an angel or just a very patient enemy. I don't know if I should protect you or eliminate you before you betray me too. He stopped directly in front of her chair, looking down with an expression caught between suspicion and something softer. But then I look at your eyes, he said quietly, and I see my mother. The only person who ever showed me genuine kindness before she died. The only person who made me believe I could be something other than a weapon. Nia's breath caught. I'm going to give you a choice, Nia Adesina. Jae-sun's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Work for me directly. Be my eyes and ears. Stay close. Help me find the traitors in my own house before they succeed in killing me. In return, I'll triple your salary. Your brother will have the best doctors in Asia. You'll be under my protection. He leaned down, his face inches from hers. Or option 2, leave Korea tonight. I'll pay for your flight and give you enough money to cover 6 months of your brother Ree's treatments, but you'll never return, and if you ever speak of what you saw here, I'll find you. Nia's heart pounded. Every logical part of her brain screamed to take option 2. Run, survive, get out while she still could. But then she thought of Chidi. 6 months of treatment wouldn't be enough, and she thought of those eyes, Jae-sun's eyes, burning with hidden pain, desperate for someone, anyone, to prove that trust wasn't fatal. "I'll stay," she heard herself say. "I'll help you." Something flickered across Jason's face. Relief. Hope. It vanished too quickly to name. "Then you work for me now. No one else. You answer to me alone." He straightened, the mask sliding back into place. "Tomorrow we start identifying every person who has access to my food, my schedule, my movements. Someone close to me wants me dead." He walked to the door, then paused. "Betray me, I won't make it quick." "I won't betray you, Mr. Kim." He looked back at her, something unreadable in his expression. "We'll see." As the door closed behind him, Nia finally allowed herself to exhale. She just made a deal with the devil himself. But maybe, just maybe, she could save the man beneath the monster. And maybe, though she barely dared think it, he could save her too. The grand dining hall glittered like a jewel box designed to hide serpents. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across tables draped in silk, where Korea's most dangerous men sat in designer suits, smiling like they weren't all plotting each other's deaths. The peace summit was a theatrical lie. Everyone knew it. The Kim Syndicate, the Park family, the Choi clan, and 3 smaller organizations, all gathered under one roof with weapons hidden beneath expensive fabric. Nia stood 2 steps behind Jae-soon's chair, her hands steady despite her racing heart. This was her first public appearance as his personal attendant, and every eye in the room had tracked her entrance. A black woman in traditional Korean serving attire, standing beside the Ice Prince himself. The whispers started immediately. "The mighty Kim Jae-soon needs a foreign babysitter now." Park Min-ho, head of the rival Park family, said loud enough for the entire table to hear. Laughter rippled through his men. "What's next? Hiring children to taste your food?" "Or perhaps," Choi Sung-min added with a snake's smile, "he's finally learned he can't trust his own blood. Smart move keeping an outsider close." Jae-sun's expression remained carved from ice. "I keep what's valuable close. The rest I discard." His voice could have frozen fire. "Perhaps that's why your organizations keep shrinking, gentlemen. Poor judgment about value." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Nia poured wine into Jae-sun's glass, her movements practiced and precise. As the dark liquid filled the crystal, his hand shifted, fingers brushing against her wrist. Not an accident. A signal. One she'd learned just this morning. Danger close. Her pulse spiked. She scanned the room with peripheral vision, trying to look subservient while her mind worked frantically. Who? Where? What kind of danger? Then she saw her. Hana, Jae-sun's cousin. Beautiful in a blood-red dress that matched her lipstick, sitting 3 seats down beside Uncle Daejung. But Hana wasn't watching the political theatre between the families. She was watching Nia and Jae-sun, and the jealousy in her eyes was so raw, so visceral, it felt like a physical thing. Their gazes met for half a second. Hana's smile was poisonous. Nia's attention shifted as servers emerged from the kitchen carrying the main course. Her breath caught in her throat. The man carrying Uncle Daejung's plate, she knew that face. The scar above his left eyebrow, the slight limp in his right leg. He was one of the kitchen staff from 3 weeks ago, the night of Jae-sun's poisoning. Every instinct screamed. She leaned down slightly, pretending to adjust Jae-sun's napkin. "The server at your uncle's table," she whispered, barely audible. "He was there the night—" Uncle Daejung lifted his chopsticks, brought food to his mouth, and then his face twisted. His hands flew to his throat, the chopsticks clattered to the floor. "Uncle!" Jae-sun was on his feet instantly. Daejung's chair toppled backward as he convulsed, foam gathering at the corners of his mouth. The dining hall exploded into chaos. Guns appeared from nowhere, men shouting, chairs scraping, families forming protective circles around their leaders. "Nobody move!" Jae-sun's voice cut through the pandemonium like a blade. His weapon was already drawn, trained on the crowd. "Everyone stays exactly where they are." But all eyes turned to Nia. She stood frozen, the wine bottle still in her hands. She'd been the closest person to the head table. She'd been moving between the seats just moments before. Jae-sun's gaze locked onto her, and for a terrible moment, she saw doubt flicker across his face. Raw, devastating. You, he said, his voice deadly quiet. You were the last one near that table. No, I didn't Nia Es protest died as two of Jae-sun S men grabbed her arms. The wine bottle shattered on the marble floor. Jae-sun, please, it wasn't me. The server, the one with the scar. Take her to the basement, Jae-sun ordered, his face a mask of stone. Now! You're making a mistake! Nia struggled against their grip, panic clawing up her throat. Listen to me. The same man who prepared your poisoned food just served your uncle. This is connected. But her voice was drowned out by the chaos. Park Min-ho was shouting accusations. Hana was crying dramatically over her father's convulsing body. The syndicate doctor rushed forward with his medical bag. As Nia was dragged toward the basement door, she caught one last glimpse of Jae-sun. He stood perfectly still in the center of the storm, his gun lowered but his eyes tracking her. Something warred in his expression. Suspicion, regret, fury, confusion. Then the basement door slammed shut and she was thrown into darkness. Above, she heard the doctor's voice, sharp with urgency. It's poison. The same compound used 3 weeks ago. Aconitine. Footsteps pounded overhead. Then Jae-sun's voice, ringing with command. Lock down the mansion. Every door, every window, every exit. No one leaves until we find who did this. A pause. Then colder. And someone bring the girl back up. Now. The basement door flew open. Rough hands hauled Nia back upstairs, her feet barely touching the ground. When she emerged into the dining hall, the scene had transformed into something from a nightmare. Every family was surrounded by armed guards. Uncle Dae-jung lay on the floor, the doctor working frantically over him, and Jae-sun stood at the center of it all, a king surveying his crumbling kingdom. His eyes found hers immediately. The doctor confirmed it, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. Same poison, same method, same supplier. He looked around at the assembled families. This isn't about me anymore. Someone is systematically eliminating the Kim bloodline. How convenient, Park Min-ho sneered, that this happens right after you bring an outsider into your inner circle. An outsider who saved my life once already, Jae-sun countered, while the traitor has been here all along. Someone with access, someone trusted. His gaze swept across the crowd, landing briefly on each person. Someone in this room. He walked to the main entrance and with a gesture, his men sealed it. Heavy locks slid into place. The windows shuttered. The mansion transformed into a fortress, into a prison. No one leaves, Jae-sun announced. Not until we have answers, not until we have justice. He turned to Nia, his expression unreadable. You stay with me, close. You're either my greatest asset or my deadliest enemy. Either way, I'm keeping you where I can see you. Nia's throat was dry. I told you the truth. Then prove it. He held out his hand. Help me find the killer before they finish what they started. She looked at his extended hand. An offer, a challenge, a lifeline. Around them, Korea's most dangerous criminals watched with predatory interest. Someone among them was a murderer. And now, she and Jae-sun were trapped inside with them. She took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong and certain. Then let's hunt, she whispered. For the first time since the chaos began, Jae-sun's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. But his eyes remained cold as winter. Welcome, he said softly, to the most dangerous partnership of your life. Hour 3 of lockdown. Jae-sun's private quarters felt both like a sanctuary and a cage. Nia sat across from him at the massive desk, multiple monitors displaying security footage from every angle of the mansion. Her eyes burned from staring at screens, but she refused to look away. Somewhere in these recordings was the truth. There, she pointed suddenly. Third camera, Kitchen entrance. Timestamp 1847. Jason leaned closer, his shoulder brushing hers. The contact sent an unwelcome shiver down her spine, unwelcome because she couldn't afford distraction, couldn't afford to notice how he smelled like sandalwood and danger, or how his presence made her feel simultaneously terrified and protected. "The server with the scar," she continued, forcing focus. "He's talking to someone in the shadows. Can you enhance that?" Jason's fingers flew across the keyboard. The image zoomed, sharpened. A figure emerged from the darkness just enough to reveal. "A ring," Nia breathed. "On their right hand. That symbol. Park family crest." Jason's voice went glacial. "So Minho did send an assassin into my house. But why target your uncle? Why not you again?" Nia leaned back, her mind racing through possibilities. Unless what? Unless killing you was never the only goal. What if someone wants the entire Kim leadership destroyed? Create a power vacuum, chaos, then move in and take control. Jason studied her with new intensity. "You think like a strategist, not a maid." "I think like someone who's been watching you all operate for months. You forget. Invisible people see everything." She gestured at the screen. "Your staff knows which families are allied, who's sleeping with whose wife, which businesses are fronts for weapons trafficking. We're in every room, hearing every conversation. We're just treated like furniture." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. "Then teach me," he said quietly. "Teach me to see what you see." For the next hour she showed him, pointed out the cook who always stood too close to Marcus, suggesting an affair or information exchange, the driver who parked in specific spots depending on which family was visiting, a warning system, the gardener who pruned roses only on Thursdays when the Kim family held their private meetings, positioning himself below open windows. "Your invisible army," Jason murmured. "They've been here all along. And most of them are loyal to this house. To you." Nia met his eyes. "Because unlike your uncle, you've never hit them, never assaulted the young women on staff, never withheld wages as punishment. I just ignored them. Sometimes being ignored is better than being brutalized." The weight of that statement settled between them. Jason stood abruptly, walked to the window overlooking the moonlit gardens. "It's after midnight. You should rest." "I'm not tired." "You're exhausted. I can see it." He pulled off his suit jacket, draping it over the back of his chair. The shoulder holster beneath held 2 guns, visible now against his white shirt. "There's a couch. Sleep. I'll keep watch." "I don't think—" "That wasn't a request, Nia." She was too tired to argue. The leather couch felt absurdly comfortable. She curled onto it, intending to rest her eyes for just a moment. When she woke, dawn light streamed through the windows, and Jason's jacket covered her like a blanket. She sat up, disoriented. He stood at the desk, still awake, still watching footage. But when he sensed her movement, he turned. For one unguarded second, his expression was soft, almost tender. "Why do you look at me like that?" The question escaped before she could stop it. He was silent for a long moment. Then, "Because you're either the bravest woman I've ever met, or the most foolish." "Which do you think I am?" "I don't know yet." He moved toward her slowly. "But I'm starting to hope it's the first." Nia stood, his jacket sliding off her shoulders. They were close now. Too close. She could see the exhaustion in his face, the vulnerability he tried to hide. "Jason, Mincio, the woman who betrayed you. What happened to her?" His jaw tightened. "I thought I knew what loyalty looked like. I thought love meant trust. I was wrong. She hurt you. She nearly destroyed me." His voice was raw. "I gave her everything, my secrets, my weaknesses, my heart, and she sold it all to my enemies. When I found out, He stopped. "I did what had to be done." Nia reached out, her hand covering his. Not everyone is like her. His fingers turned, intertwining with hers. How do I know you're not? You don't. Not yet. But I'm still here, aren't I? Still helping. Still choosing you. Why? The question was almost desperate. Because I think beneath all this ice, there's still a man worth saving. The air between them crackled with tension. Jae-sun's free hand lifted, almost touching her face, then dropped. You should stay away from me, Nia. I don't know how to do this without destroying it. Maybe you don't have to know. Maybe you just have to try. A knock shattered the moment. Marcus's voice came through the door. Boss, we have a situation. The softness vanished from Jae-sun's face instantly. What situation? Another body, and this time there's a message. They found the body in the west corridor, one of the Choi family's men, throat slit propped against the wall, and carved into his chest, still bleeding. The heir dies last. Nia's stomach turned. Jae-sun's face became stone. Gather everyone in the main hall, he ordered Marcus. Now, including family. As Marcus left, Nia touched Jae-sun's arm. This is escalating. They're not even hiding anymore. No, he agreed grimly. They're making a statement. They want me to know I'm helpless. That even locked in my own home, I can't protect anyone. Then we need to move faster. But before she could say more, Marcus returned, escorted by armed guards. His hands were zip-tied behind his back. Boss, Marcus started. We found evidence in his quarters, one of the guards interrupted. Bank transfers from Park family accounts, encrypted messages about security schedules, and this. He held up a vial. Aconitine, enough to kill 12 men. Nia's world tilted. No, Marcus wouldn't. Take him to the detention room, Jae-sun ordered, his voice empty of emotion. Now. Wait! Nia stepped between them. You're wrong. He's being framed. Step aside, Nia. No. She planted herself firmly. If you kill an innocent man, you're no better than the people hunting you. You're better than this. Jae-sun stared at her, something flickering in his eyes. No one had challenged him like this. Ever. His men watched, uncertain. Finally, he spoke. Detention, not execution, not yet. He looked at Nia. You have 24 hours to prove his innocence. If you can't, he dies. And if you're wrong about him, we all might die. As they dragged Marcus away, he called back, Nia, you're playing with fire. Jae-sun doesn't know how to love without possessing. Get out while you can. But she was already following Jae-sun back to his quarters, her mind racing. She had one day to find a killer, save an innocent man, and survive a mansion full of murderers. And somewhere in all of this, she was falling for the most dangerous man in Seoul. God help her. She was starting to think she might not survive this after all. Nia stood in the centre of Hana's beautiful, expensive room, feeling sick. Jae-sun had sent her here to look for anything that tied Hana to the Park family. You see what others miss, Nia. Look for the tiny lies. She started with the clothes, then the jewellery, finding nothing but excessive wealth. She moved to the antique vanity table, its surface covered in imported perfumes and flawless makeup. It felt too perfect. Nia ran her hand along the edge of the polished wood, noticing a slight give in the side panel near the floor. A tiny button, disguised as a carved floral pattern, was hidden low on the leg. Her fingers trembling, Nia pressed it. The centre mirror slid silently upwards, revealing a narrow, hidden compartment. Her breath hitched. This was no place for lipstick. Inside lay a stack of documents, a folded map and a set of old photographs. The documents were detailed correspondence with Park Min-ho, confirming Hana's role as an informant. The maps were of the Kim Mansion's security system, showing the blind spots and camera outages, the same ones used the night Jae-sun was poisoned. Nia's heart hammered against her ribs. This was the proof they needed to save Marcus and expose the conspiracy. But then she saw the photos. They were aged, black and white images, the scene of a brutal murder 20 years ago. Jae-sun's parents. She saw the blood, the familiar pattern of the Kim family crest on the floor, and the bodies of his mother and father. Nia picked up a note that accompanied the photos, its paper brittle. It was a recent message, mocking Jae-sun's pain and celebrating the coming end of the Kim line. The note confirmed the existence of a fourth person at the murder scene, someone who had always been a part of the family. Nia's blood ran cold. The flowing, elegant handwriting on the notes. She had seen it hundreds of times on signed paychecks and household orders. It belonged to only one person, Uncle Dae-jung. The impossible truth slammed into her. Dae-jung hadn't been a victim. He was the mastermind. He murdered Jae-sun's parents to seize control, but he couldn't completely overthrow them yet. He was slowly poisoning himself with controlled doses of aconitine to play the role of a frail, sympathetic victim, drawing suspicion away from himself and onto the Park family. His real, terrifying plan: frame Jae-sun, the last true Kim heir, as the traitor who tried to poison his own uncle. Then, the rest of the syndicate would execute Jae-sun, and Dae-jung would recover and take permanent, undisputed control. Hana was simply a pawn, promised the future leadership in exchange for her loyalty and her silence. Nia gathered the damning evidence, her mind screaming, it wasn't the Park family, it was always his uncle, the only person he trusted. She rushed out of Hannah's room, running down the silent hallway toward Jae-sun's private quarters, but she found his room empty, the door slightly ajar. She heard voices nearby, guards, speaking in low, urgent Korean. The boss ordered the heir to the vault. Alone. No guards, no weapons. Protocol for a traitor's execution. The vault. The terrible room deep in the mansion's foundation, known only for its final, deadly purpose. Dae-jung was not waiting. He was making his move now, isolating Jae-sun before the lockdown was lifted. Nia stumbled, nearly falling. She could run. She could escape the mansion during the chaos. Her brother's medical funds, already tripled by Jae-sun's protection, were in her locked room. She could be on a flight to safety in hours, but she pictured Jae-sun. The raw, unguarded moment this morning when he covered her with his jacket. The broken look in his eyes when he talked about trust. The fact that he was walking toward a gun held by the one man he ever allowed himself to love. She whispered the words, a plea to the cold marble floor. Please don't let me be too late. She ran, racing past the kitchen, past the detained syndicate members, toward the dark stone steps leading down. She burst into the vault chamber, just as the heavy steel door was about to shut. The scene inside was devastating. Dae-jung stood there, a small polished gun held steady against Jae-sun's temple. Jae-sun was on his knees, his hands tied, his face a mask of utter devastation. Uncle. Why? Jae-sun's voice was barely a whisper, broken and betrayed. Jae-sun, it was always him! Nia screamed, throwing the evidence across the stone floor toward Dae-jung. The old, damning photos skidded to a stop at his polished shoes. Dae-jung's mask finally dropped, his face contorted into a cold, satisfied smile. You should have stayed invisible, little maid. With the speed of a practiced killer, Dae-jung instantly turned the gun away from Jae-sun and pointed it directly at Nia's chest. Jae-sun lunged forward despite his ties, giving a guttural shout, but from the shadows Hannah stepped out, her own weapon drawn and aimed. The vault echoed with the blast. Hannah's shot went wide of Nia, but found its target in Jae-sun. It hit him squarely in the shoulder. A spray of blood hit the cold stone wall as he cried out, going down hard onto his side. The metallic taste of fear filled Nia's mouth. Stop struggling, you idiot! Dae-jung snarled at Jae-sun before barking orders to his two remaining loyal guards. Take the girl to the disposal room, now! I want her gone before the other families realize what's happening. Nia fought them with every ounce of strength she had, kicking and thrashing, screaming Jae-sun's name until her voice was raw. Jae-sun! Don't let him! Jae-sun struggled against the heavy rope binding his hands, rage and pain contorting his face. Their eyes met across the cavernous vault. His were no longer cold, but filled with a horrifying, helpless terror, all of it directed at her fate. He was unable to move, unable to protect her. Rough hands clamped over her mouth and dragged her relentlessly out of the vault, toward the deepest, most sealed-off part of the complex. Nia was thrown into the mansion's incinerator room. A small, windowless concrete box with industrial metal walls and a huge, ominous chute. The air immediately grew thick and hot. The door slammed shut with a final, heavy clang that sounded like a coffin lid. She frantically slammed her fists against the unyielding metal, but the noise was swallowed by the thick walls. A series of deep, grinding noises started up as the ventilation system changed. The walls seemed to vibrate. The heat began to rise, quickly becoming suffocating. She could feel the skin on her arms tingling, the air growing heavy and thin. She knew what this was. They were sealing the room, preparing the burn cycle. She had minutes before the system activated, and the immense heat would finish the job. Outside, a loudspeaker crackled to life. Daijung's voice amplified across the building, clearly intended for Jae-sun to hear. Jae-sun, watch your little savior burn. That Nigerian girl made the mistake of thinking she could save a killer. Then, my boy, you're next. Goodbye, Ice Prince. Wounded, bleeding, and chained securely to a ring bolt in the vault floor, Jae-sun was forced to listen to the sounds of his betrayal. Daejung monologued, standing over him like a cruel father. Your father was weak. Your mother was weak. They both died for love and trust, Daejung sneered, kicking Jae-sun's wounded side. And you? You are weak because you felt something for that girl. That is why you lose everything. Hana, holding her gun steady, added her own cold venom. I've loved you since we were children, Jae-sun. I offered you power and devotion, but you never saw me. You chose her. You'll die knowing you chose wrong. Jae-sun's mask finally shattered. He wasn't the Ice Prince anymore. He was a terrified, heartbroken boy. He ignored the pain in his shoulder, straining against the ropes until they cut into his wrists. He threw his head back and let out a raw, anguished roar, a sound born of pure helplessness, and the realization that his single chance at light was about to be extinguished because of him. In the incinerator room, panic was giving way to a sickening calm. Nia searched desperately for an exit. She found a small, rusted vent cover near the ceiling. She climbed onto a stack of old buckets, frantically tearing at the grate. She screamed through the narrow opening. Someone help! Please! The sound was muffled, hopeless. She realized with chilling certainty that the only person in this entire empire who would risk everything to save her was chained, bleeding, and waiting to die just 50 yards away. A digital readout on the wall blinked an angry red. Incinerator start in 60 seconds. Jae-sun's vision blurred from blood loss. He could hear the hum of the incinerator starting up, a sound that promised the horrifying end of Nia. Daijung, satisfied, raised his gun, aiming carefully for Jae-sun's heart. Both seemed doomed, separated by stone and betrayal, with only 60 seconds left. The red numbers glared from the incinerator S control panel, 0058. 58 seconds until Nia Adesina was reduced to ash. The concrete box was already shimmering with intense heat, and the air was thin, tasting of burnt metal. You are a fighter, Nia. You don't wait to be saved. Nia stopped screaming. She dropped to her knees, looking around the floor. Her elegant, expensive maid shoe, a necessity for the job, was a strong leather heel. 35 seconds. With a desperate grunt, she wrenched her foot out of the shoe. She jammed the sharp heel into the small gap between the door and the wall where the locking mechanism engaged. She twisted it with all her strength. A sickening, grinding screech echoed as the heel shattered, but the motion stopped. The digital clock paused, frozen at 0032. She had bought herself maybe 3 extra minutes of life before the pressure overcame the flimsy obstruction. Her hands, slick with sweat, moved frantically along the wall. She found what she was looking for, a loose, heavy maintenance pipe running horizontally along the ceiling. She grabbed the shoe's remains, now a jagged piece of wood and leather, and began to bang a rapid, complex rhythm on the pipe. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. It was the distress signal Marcus had taught her, a relic from his days serving in the military before he became the Syndicate S Chief of Security. A desperate signal meant to travel through the mansion's thick walls and foundation. Upstairs in the vault, Jae-sun was choking on his own blood, the the chains biting into his wrists, forced to hear Dae-jung's sickening, triumphant laugh. "Listen, nephew, the Ice Prince is broken, and now the woman who melted your cold heart will burn for her stupidity." Dae-jung held the gun steady. Jae-sun stared into his uncle's eyes, seeing only the monster who murdered his parents. But then, through the haze of pain and fury, he heard a faint, persistent clanging from the depths of the basement, a strange, insistent rhythm. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. He remembered Naya's calm voice the night before, explaining the invisible staff's network. "We're in every room, hearing every conversation. We're just treated like furniture." The invisible people, Marcus, Nia, they had a language he didn't know. Hope, hot and painful, sliced through his despair. He risked everything, forcing air past the agony in his chest. "Marcus!" Jae-sun roared, his voice bouncing off the vault's stone walls. "I know you're listening! I was wrong! I need you!" Dae-jung and Hana laughed. "Your lapdog is dead, Jae-sun. He's gone," Dae-jung sneered. But before the words fully left his lips, the heavy steel door to the vault burst inward. Marcus stood there, not in chains, but in full tactical gear, his face grim. He wasn't dead, and he wasn't arrested. Jae-sun hadn't ordered his execution. He had staged his arrest, moving his most loyal general off the board and into the shadows, a hidden final asset. "He called," Marcus said simply, raising 2 suppressed pistols. 2 quick surgical shots and Dae-jung's remaining loyal guards crumpled without a sound. Dae-jung stared in disbelief. "You traitor! You were supposed to be locked up." "The only traitor here is you, sir," Marcus said, already cutting Jae-sun's bonds. But the real heart-stopping twist was happening in the hallways above. The mansion erupted. It wasn't just Marcus. The staff, the men and women Nia had always treated with respect, remembering their names, asking about their families, were moving. Cooks with knives, drivers with tire irons, cleaning staff with bottles of corrosive chemicals. The invisible army Nia had unintentionally created. They were Marcus's network, and they were loyal to the kind Nigerian girl who saw them as people, not furniture. They struck at Dae-jung's hidden mercenaries, securing the perimeter, fighting for the house, fighting for Nia. "The incinerator room, Marcus! Go!" Jae-sun yelled, stumbling free, his hand pressed to his blood-soaked shoulder. He didn't wait. Despite the blinding pain, Jae-sun used his remaining strength to race toward the basement, Marcus running ahead. They reached the disposal room, the door humming with dangerous heat. Jae-sun threw his entire weight against the thick steel, screaming in fury. The lock finally snapped and the door flew open. Nia was a silhouette in the blinding light, shaking, gasping for breath. She stumbled forward, collapsing directly into Jae-sun's arms. He held her tight, his chest heaving, the stench of fear and burning ozone filling their space. They sank to the floor together, both sobbing with sheer, raw relief. He held her face in his hands, tracing the lines of panic and exhaustion. "I thought I'd lost you. I thought you were gone because I was too blind to trust the truth." She didn't answer with words, only lifted herself up and kissed him desperately, pouring every drop of fear, love, and relief into the embrace. When she finally pulled back, gasping, he whispered the words he thought he'd never say again. He shed the last of the Ice Prince. "I love you, Nia Adesina. God help me, I love you." Nia managed a weak, tear-stained smile. "I love you too, you terrifying, broken man." "We need to end this," he said, struggling to his feet. Nia grabbed his arm, her eyes suddenly sharp with focus. "Wait! The photos, the ones I found in Hana's room, they showed a 4th person at your parents' murder. It wasn't just Dae-jung. Someone else was in the shadows that day." Jae-sun's eyes widened, the rage hardening back into resolve, the ultimate puppet master. They were no longer victims. They had an army, they had the truth, and they had each other. Jae-sun and Nia stormed back into the vault chamber, supported by Marcus and flanked by their loyal staff, an assembly of cooks, drivers, and maids, now standing armed and ready. The sight was unprecedented, the Ice Prince backed by the invisible working class of his own mansion. Dae-jung stood over Hana, who was still trying to recover from her fall, his gun pointed defensively at the crowd. "You won't defeat me with these servants, Jae-sun." Dae-jung laughed, his voice cracking with desperation. "I've controlled this syndicate for 20 years. I am the foundation. I built this empire while your weak father tried to make peace with rivals." "You didn't build it, uncle," Jae-sun said, his voice cold and steady, the exhaustion gone, replaced by lethal certainty. "You only tried to steal it." Nia stepped forward, holding the laminated photo from Hana's room, pointing to the blurred figure in the background. "And you didn't act alone. You needed more power than even the Kim syndicate could give you." She threw the photo down, landing near Dae-jung's feet. The fourth person at the murder of Jae-sun's parents, the one providing the deep cover intel and the escape route, was the Park family matriarch, your secret wife. The ultimate twist hit Dae-jung like a physical blow. He froze, his cruel smile dissolving into naked shock. "You married into the Park family decades ago, didn't you?" Nia pressed, her voice unwavering. "You were never loyal to the Kims. This entire time you've been running a shadow alliance. You eliminated Jason's parents to weaken the Kim syndicate, then used your Park marriage to quietly build power. Your goal was to wipe out all the true Kim heirs, Dae-sun, then Jae-sun, and merge the two greatest syndicates under your own control." Dae-jung stared at the maid, stunned by her knowledge. He tried to reclaim control, pulling Hana violently in front of him as a shield. "She's my daughter. Hana is half Park through her mother, my true second family. You won't shoot your own cousin, Jae-sun. You won't shoot your own blood." Jae-sun, bleeding and heartbroken, levelled his gun. It trembled in his hand, pointed directly at the face of the man who had been his father, his teacher, and his ultimate tormentor. "You killed my parents. You destroyed my childhood. You made me a killer so you could mould me into your weapon." Dae-jung sneered, looking down at Nia. "Your father was going to dismantle everything I built. He wanted to go legitimate, weak, just like you've become for this maid. Look at you, begging for her life instead of taking mine." Nia gently touched Jae-sun's arm, her presence an anchor in the storm of his rage. "Don't become him. Don't let revenge make you into the monster he is," she whispered, her eyes pleading with him to choose a different path. Hana, hearing her father's confession about his ultimate plan, a plan that would leave her as nothing more than a puppet leader for the Park matriarch, made her choice. She went suddenly limp in Dae-jung's grip, then used the momentum to drive her elbow sharply into his ribs. Dae-jung gasped in pain, staggering back. Hana stumbled free, her own weapon falling to the floor. Tears streamed down her face, a mixture of shame and self-hatred. "I loved you, father," she cried. "But you made me a monster too. I won't let you destroy everyone." She lifted a small device, a hidden microphone, that had been taped beneath the cuff of her dress. "You all heard it," she announced to the empty air. "Every word. He confessed to 20 years of betrayal." The vault doors, which had been sealed by Marcus, suddenly hissed open. Standing outside was the full, terrifying assembly of the Kim Syndicate Council, accompanied by the heads of the Choi and Park families. They had heard the entire confession, broadcast over the mansion's internal system thanks to Hana's hidden recording. The verdict was swift and silent. The most senior council member stepped forward, ignoring Jae-sun's bleeding figure and Dae-jung's desperate pleas. By the ancient, brutal laws of the syndicate, Dae-jung was stripped of all power and condemned as a traitor. The council leader turned to Jae-sun. "It is your right, Kim Jae-sun, for your mother and father, for the honor of the family." Jae-sun looked from the trembling, pathetic figure of Dae-jung, who was now a man stripped bare, to the cold, ready faces of the syndicate, and finally, to Nia. He saw his own future in that choice. He could be the Ice Prince forever, or he could be the man Nia believed he could be. He lowered his gun, the steel clattering against the stone floor. "I'm not my uncle," he said, his voice ringing with a new, hard clarity. "I choose differently. Let the syndicate execute its own justice." He took Nia's hand, his fingers intertwining with hers, a silent promise. They turned their backs on the chaos, walking away from the vault, away from the darkness, toward the sunlight streaming through the shattered hall windows. Behind them, the cold, final sounds of justice were carried out by the council. Jae-sun didn't look back. 6 months passed, and the mansion in Seoul was no longer a cage of shadows. Kim Jae-sun, now known to the world not as the Ice Prince, but as the Reformer, systematically dismantled the darkness his uncle left behind. He channeled the syndicate's immense power into legitimate businesses, focusing on protecting, not preying. Marcus stood faithfully as his chief of operations. Even Hana, seeking redemption, used her intelligence to map and dissolve her father's shadow network. With the danger gone, Jae-sun finally gave his heart permission to follow the only person who had ever seen past the killer and into the broken boy. Jae-sun stepped off the private jet in Lagos, Nigeria. The humid air, heavy with life and spice, was the complete opposite of Seoul's cold marble halls. He found Nia in the small, bustling hospital garden, watching her brother Chidi run loops around a palm tree. Chidi was strong now, healthy and laughing, his leukemia in full remission. When Nia looked up and saw Jae-sun, the syringe she was holding clattered to the ground. She didn't hesitate. She ran, leaping into his arms. He caught her, spinning her slowly. "I told you I'd come," he murmured into her hair. "I didn't think the great Mafia heir would slum it in Lagos," she teased, tears blurring her vision. "I'd go anywhere for you, Nia, to the ends of the earth." He set her down, his expression serious. Jae-sun knelt right there in the dusty garden, ignoring the curious eyes of the nurses. He pulled out a small velvet box. Inside, resting on the cushion, was a simple, beautiful platinum band. Nothing ostentatious, just strong and pure. "You saved my life with a single trembling piece of paper," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "I don't know how to live without you seeing me every day. Let me spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth saving. Marry me, Nia Adesina." She cried and laughed all at once. "You're still terrifying, you know that," she managed. "Is that a yes?" he asked, a genuine grin, the first in years, spreading across his face. "Yes," she whispered, 1,000 times yes. Chidi, running over, wrapped Jae-sun in a tight hug. "So you're the guy my sister talks about every single day?" Jae-sun laughed. "I'm the lucky guy, kid." As the sun began to set over the sprawling city, Nia leaned her head against Jae-sun's shoulder, his suit jacket draped protectively over her simple Nigerian wrap dress. They walked hand in hand, 2 worlds united, 2 broken souls made whole. Nia came to Korea to save her brother. She never expected to save a broken man's soul, or for him to save hers in return. He gave her hope, and she gave him the strength to choose differently. In the end, they didn't escape the darkness. They just learned how to be the light in it. Hey, don't leave us hanging. This story of love and life or death choices is over, but your next one is just beginning. What was the most emotional moment for you? When Nia ran for the incinerator, or when Jae-sun finally said, "I love you"? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more thrilling stories like this.